very nice trick. And then what I'm going to do is right click now, and SolidWorks is going to go and generate the sketch for me. There we go. The slice tool has created a plane and the sketch. But now I need to create geometry. I need to create reference geometry to do a revolve, because I can't just, the sketch is great, but around what? So this is a real goodie as well. If I go to my features and I look at the reference geometry, I need an axis to do my revolve. So I just go to my normal conical face, and you'll see an option underneath there that says paint selected faces. And again, I can actually go and use my trick that I used earlier on with the select tangent facets with that tolerance that I spoke to you about earlier. So that allows me to, is to go and pick my adjacent limit. Let's make that 10, maybe make it a bit of a smaller angle. And as I go and select along there, it's going to start understanding where I'd like to create that reference axis. Okay, so I'm just going to say okay. It's got an idea now of where my circular face is, and it will go in and apply a axis to it. So there's my axis. Easy as that. I now have a sketch and I have an axis. Check at that. So from my mesh, I've created the slice. So I now have a sketch, I have an axis, and I can go in and create my own geometry. I've often had a discussion with people around, is there a fancy tool in SolidWorks that allows you, to automatically, convert this mesh into a solid file? Probably, but those tools are quite expensive, and they don't really give you exactly what you want. Most people I've spoken to always say that it's easier and better to draw your own geometry because you have control of what you want. And what's nice about this is that you have full control, and you can compare what you're going to design now with the mesh data that you brought in, which I'm going to show you. So I'm going to cheat a little bit for this. I'm going to go and show you this one over here, which is my completed one. Again, this is what I did earlier on. I've got my slice, I did a revolve, I did a bit of a loft to get the curve of my tooth. I did a pattern, and there I've got a chamfer on it as well. When looking at mesh modeling, there's a body compare option over there on the top. And if I just hover my mouse over, you can actually see the body compare tool, and it will show you the difference between the two bodies that I've got with my SolidWorks. So if I go and look at the solid body, I'm going to say, let's use my imported graphic, the one that I started off with, versus the new body which I created. And then I want SolidWorks to go and do a what do you call it? A superimpose. And I got different graphic viewing options over here, which allow me to look at it in a bit more of detail. So I can see exactly what's going on. And if I put it with the mesh data, I can zoom in and see that there's a slight comparison difference. And there's a little bit of a slider at the bottom of the screen, which allows me to have a higher level of integrity to have a look at what's going on there. And you can see these models are super close. There's only a 1.5 or 1.9 difference between the base of that tooth from our mesh. So this gives me a really good indication of where I am and what I'm doing and the actual deviation of the year, which is great. So that's my body compare. So the next thing is moving this mesh around, because you're thinking, how do I line up my meshes? How do I get everything to line up properly? Sometimes when you download or you scan a mesh and you put the file in SolidWorks, it comes up with some freaky angle, and it's always offset. And this is one of the questions we got in the week as well. How do I move this mesh around? How do I get it to line? Because I can't do anything with it. And really, Joshua showed a really cool trick in one of the first sessions that we hosted with you guys on creating coordinate systems. Now that I've shown you that you can actually create geometry and planes in SolidWorks, you can use the technique that Josh showed in the beginning of the session of the week. And for those of you who haven't joined us, you can just follow these easy steps. You add a reference plane if you want to use that, or edges. You create a coordinate system. You export that STL with the coordinate system, which I'll show you now. Then you bring that back in again, and SolidWorks aligns it with the origin. And voila, you're done. Let me show you how that works. I'm going to close down everything I've got and just open a file that's gone wonky. So I'm going to go to the beginning, and I'm going to say oops STL. So now I've got the problem with this file again, where I'm just going to go, and I should have imported this as a solid. I apologize. But we know our tricks now. And if I look at it from the front view, you can see that it's all skew and it's not correct. Again, I'm working with very simple files. I've got complicated files, but this is not the point. You know, the idea behind the series is that I'm trying to teach you theory and really get the principle through to you guys so that you can go and apply to any model. And we're going to give our support email address at the end. If you are struggling with the techniques that I'm teaching you today, please reach out to us and we can help you with any specific files that you have, you know, with these kinds of techniques. But remember now that I've created these edges and faces that I can work with, you can go ahead and use normal SolidWorks features with it, like coordinate system. You can also go and create planes in here as well, which I spoke about earlier, but I'm not going to do that now. You can go create planes in a mesh as normal. But what I'm going to do is, because this is easy, I'm just going to go and select a vertex point over here, and I'm going to use normal X and Y planes, so that I've got a coordinate system over here that we can use. Again, I'm just going to randomly say, okay, it's fine. And you will see the coordinate system now is linked to the model I've created. And again, remember this file is all skew. So I'm going to take this STL file now, and I'm going to go and say File, Save As. And I can export it as a STL, again, out. But under my options over here, there's this option which Joshua showed us, which allows me to export it with a specific coordinate system. So if I say okay, and I've got a junk folder here, and I'm going to say, oops, I did it again. Yes. And let's go and open it. And this time, when I open that file and I look at it from the front, the coordinate system of the export that I just created is aligned with SolidWorks. So you can see my front plane, top plane, right plane is using the coordinate system. So that's a very nice little trick that you can use. That's very, very quick and easy for you to create a coordinate system, push that file back out as an STL file using your coordinate system, and bring it back in again, and it will be easily aligned. It's a super little, a little trick that you can use, and it will help you so much. So moving swiftly along is this ability for us to use directly editing in a mesh. Now, I don't know why Windows is fighting with me here, but this is quite cool. In PowerPoint, you can actually create 3D models. There's the STL. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this file in SolidWorks. You see there's a hole there in SolidWorks. I'm going to show you how to identify holes inside of STL files that are brought in. And these two holes that you see in the bottom of here, I'm gonna take those two holes and I'm gonna delete them. And remember, this is still a mesh file. I'm gonna show you some tricks how we can directly edit mesh files without even being SolidWorks files. A native SolidWorks file, that is. Let me go and get this file. I didn't pin it. That's okay. We'll go and find it here. So just give me a second. And there is my file. Sorry. Remember I told you the trick of opening this thing up? I want to try and get SolidWorks to do some work for me. So I'm going to try and cheat and tell this thing to open up as a solid body. But remember, there's a hole that I showed you. So SolidWorks is trying to make it solid and it's telling me, sorry, I can't actually make it solid. There's a problem with it. So it's fine. SolidWorks will bring this thing as a surface body. And I've still got all my planes and the model's been divided up for me. Just a nice little trick as well. If I work in plain white background, it allows you to see the model a bit easier. So if you use this plain white, it's a lot easier to see some of the mesh information in the model. So it's brought in this mesh file. It's a surface, and I can actually show you that SolidWorks allows me to create normal features in SolidWorks, like a fillet. So I can actually click on this mesh file over here and apply normal SolidWorks fillet to the edge. I can use other tools as well, so I can convert that fillet to a chamfer. For those of you who didn't know, you can do that. So remember, this is just an imported STL that I've opened up as a surface or a solid, and I can actually work with this file, even though it's an STL that I brought in. Another nice trick I like showing is using surfacing tools inside of mesh modeling. So this tool I've got over here allows me to use offset surfaces. Remember, I'm just in mesh modeling here still. So I'm going to use offset surface. I can take that face that our SolidWorks to bring in. I'm going to make that that surface work be inside, because maybe I want to remove that radius and make it a bit smaller because I want to edit the file a little bit. So I take that face, do an offset, and I'm going to use my my Ninja SolidWorks surfacing tools to cut material away. So I'm going to use my select other. Boom. Select other. And I'm going to select that face, okay, or that surface, and I'm going to extend that. By 10 mils. Just that I've got a surface going around the other model, which I can remove. Okay, now I can use that to trim and cut away. So this is normal SolidWorks surface modeling techniques. So I'm going to trim surface. Now, by the way, on a side note, we are starting to host online training, and we're going to be covering some basic training and advanced training remotely. So please contact us about doing training with us, where we go into depth with these tools, and we'll teach you some of these master modeling techniques over a period of days. And there's so many of these that we can dive into with you. So touch base with us or keep in touch with us and reach out to us to do online training, which we are going to be doing a lot of. So I'm going to say do a mutual trim, and I'm going to take that surface tool and I'm going to use this body over here to trim. And just have a look here. I can ask what I want to remove and what I want to keep. This is quite nice. So I'm going to tell SolidWorks to remove that top piece, and I wanted to remove that outer edge over there. And you can see the final result of this mutual trim. So as soon as I say okay, you will see SolidWorks will take that face, cut it away, and leave me with that new surface at the bottom. Really nice little trick for working with geometry. Okay, now, now we want to look at this hole. Where did this hole come from? How do we find it? There's an option over here on top called check. So if I say check and I say check all my surfaces and solids, SolidWorks will actually point out with an arrow. So if I run this check again, you will see with an arrow in SolidWorks there's an open surface over there. Check this out. Zoom into the hole, select the hole, right click, and delete hole. That's one way of doing it. I don't want you to laugh now, but if you select the hole and you push delete on your keyboard, SolidWorks allows you to say delete hole by just saying okay, and that's even faster. And that works in normal SolidWorks as well. So yes, it is ridiculously easy to remove things like a hole. When we finish with this webinar, go back to your office, take a block, drill a hole in it, click on the inside face of that hole, and push delete on your keyboard, and you'll see how easy it is to delete a face. It's been in there for years. It's one of those features in SolidWorks that's been probably 14, 15 years old. Sorry for those of you who didn't know that. Another way for us to remove holes like this is with the delete hole button that is there as well. So we can go and select the faces of those holes and remove them manually as well. Okay, but let's move on to more interesting things. Again, let's look at this strange hedgehog type texture face over here. Now, I think there are some UJ Industrial Design students here as well, but we've had quite a lot of requests from the students asking about textures and surfaces, and I'm just going to show you guys how to apply texture like this in SolidWorks. Now, to go and model something like this in SolidWorks, normally using solid geometry will take you an enormous amount of time. And we'll be finding more and more now with the advent of 3D printing technology. I just need to put a nerdling or a logo or an image on a surface and print it out and just see how it's going to work. And this is super, super powerful and super easy to do. All right, back to SolidWorks. Let's go and close everything and look how we do this. So I've opened up a curvy. Let me just move this to the side of here. Let's have a look at this this face over here. And I've actually got 3 or 4 different images on this this face that I've used this technique with. And I'm just going to show you how I created this texture, this 3D texture on that surface. So I've got quite a curvy surface over here, and I'd like to map a image on here. And I've just taken a JPEG like this, and you'll see it's a nerdle, it's a little knurl bump. So I want you to follow carefully what I'm doing. So if I drag this image or JPEG from my appearance tab here in SolidWorks, so I just went to appearances. There's a whole bunch of different options here as well you can use, but I just found this nerdle bump one. It's a dark image with a light image. So you've got to use one that contrasts, like this little logo at the bottom as well. We have a light area and a dark area. And what SolidWorks does, it does a bit of an offset, which I'll show you now. So follow me carefully. I drag that image onto the face. Be careful how you click. Don't move away too quickly. It asks, do you want to put this image on the face, the body, the part? You can choose. And I only want it on this one single face. Now, before you click, you hold in Alt. And if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, it actually tells you there. No one reads this. It tells you drag and drop the appearance onto the model and then use Alt immediately afterwards. So if you hold in Alt on my keyboard and I select that face, it's going to come up with a bunch of options. So over here, it's got basic options and advanced options. So I can choose how I want that image to be mapped onto that face. So the first option there is the mapping. Is it cylindrical? Is it wrapping it? No, I want it just to project it onto that face. Where are you projecting it from? So underneath there, I can choose which kind of axis I'd like. So I'm going to choose the YZ like that and project it straight onto the face. And now it's easy. I can just take this little, what do you call it, like a triad here, move it around until I get the nerdling sort of graphically, roughly what I'd like. And then you just say, okay. So again, it's an image projected onto my screen and projected onto my model, and I'd like to use the 3D mapping tool to build a solid a texture out of this thing. So what you do is you go to your solid body there in the feature tree, top here. You click on the body. I've got the same options, but then right at the end over there, you're going to see a 3D texture tool. So it's going to go and look at what texture I've applied. I select that one. And I'm just going to hover over these for a second. So if you look at the texture refinement, this controls the number of facets in that texture. And you can then slide this thing up and down as you'd like. The next one over there is controls the elevation of the offset. So as I manipulate this thing, you will start seeing my model elevating the difference between the dark areas and the light areas. So white up and black down decides which region of the mesh will be offset. So the tool actually gives you dynamic help in understanding how this mesh is going to behave as a 3D texture. And you can see the higher I go, the higher the offset difference. And if I increase this, it will just increase the density of that mesh. Now, when I say okay, you will see that it actually goes and applies that texture to my model. And then I can go and use a 3D print or apply this in my SolidWorks model. And when I actually have it together with an assembly, it actually looks like I've gone and modeled a 3D texture on there. And it looks really nice. It looks real. It doesn't look like a 3D graphic. It actually is a 3D representation of that image. Works really, really well. So then last tip before we end up is with the same understanding now of the mesh bodies. When doing rendering in SolidWorks, you can actually apply different textures to different bodies. And SolidWorks treat these mesh bodies as single entities. So you can actually break down your model and split them into different pieces and actually split in a non-3D and these 3D bodies together. And you can have multiple appearances on the same model by using this technique of breaking them down. So this is something that, that we've played with, and it works really nicely as well. So that's it. Again, on the question side, please pop through a few questions now. I will have a look at the chat and answer some of the questions. Please, again, if they're not going to be addressed now, continue to reach out to us at support@meCAD, and look at our YouTube channel. Just if you Google meCAD and YouTube, you will see it, or look at our website. And there are links connected to the document that we are going to share with you as well. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. I am just going to go and have a look at some of the questions. Rudolph, do you want to come online as well?
Yes, Quentin, sorry, just the last poll that I want to share with guys.
Yes,
I'm going to launch it now.
If you guys, before you guys leave, and while you're doing that, I'm going to read some of the questions. So please spend the next minute just filling out that poll for us, please, and then I'm going to answer some of the questions you have. So everything that I've shown you today is available in some of the features are not available in older versions of SolidWorks. 2018 doesn't have all of the options, but they did start including it in 2018. SolidWorks really started adding a lot of tools in 2019 SolidWorks and 2020. So the last two versions of SolidWorks have a massive amount of files added to it. Sebastian asked, would you apply the texture feature as a cylindrical option to revolve, or just as an option it is chosen as an example? Yeah, I'll just use an example. You know, when applying textures to a feature, you know, again, you've got multiple options by holding in that that Alt tool. It gives you all of those options when applying those textures. A lot of information there. You know, a lot of tools, a lot of options, and those things have been there again for many, many years. It's only this 3D texture tool that's been around for the last version of SolidWorks. We are not going to upload, Maya, we're not going to be uploading this to YouTube. What we will be doing is we will upload the file to a private channel, and we will individually share this webinar series with you guys. And we will, you know, you're more than welcome to share this in your groups at work or in your class together. Jason, the maximum vertex count, 600,000. I actually don't know. I will come back to you with that question. I'll find out. but I know SolidWorks has increased the capacity over the last two releases of SolidWorks. I've seen pretty massive files open as graphics. Any other questions? We're going to be hanging around for a bit more. Again, people are asking about, we're just polling for future ideas. If you guys are looking at, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen quickly. You know, again, please email us at the support@mecat.co.za. You know, push mails out to us and say, you know, we'd like to see a topic. You know, next week's webinar, we'd like to, you know, talk about, you know, anything. You know, we're open to discuss anything with you guys. You know, please communicate it with us in writing, and we will definitely take everything into consideration. So, you know, please go ahead and mail us suggestions. You know, again, today's webinar was based off of you know, Hakim's email to me, and multiple other people that have actually requested in chats that we do this. So, you know, please feel free to do that. I'm going to stay around again. Thank you for, I'm going to hang around for another minute or two just to answer more questions, but thank you all for joining us. And again, this was recorded and will be sent to you tomorrow. Have a great Thursday evening, and I will see you guys next week. Ciao.